Scott, Florida, you're in the Wilkow majority. Hello.
Hey, Andrew. We can probably have to agree to disagree on the private sector, but I was hoping we could find some common ground on the public sector.
Private sector's doing fine. What are you talking about? We agree. Private sector's doing great.
Well, great.
I heard the president.
We are in agreement. But let me just point something out, and I think you know this. I just want to make sure
You know I was being completely sarcastic, right?
No, I know where you're coming from. The point.
What do you mean where I'm coming from? The president said that the private sector is doing just fine. The private sector is not doing just fine.
Andrew, he said in relation to the public sector. And the point I'm trying to make is this. Under similar recessions in our past, Ronald Reagan added 1.5 million government jobs. Under Bush's recession, which was the slightest in our lifetime, Bush added 1.5 million government jobs. Obama has cut 500,000 government jobs. That's a difference of 2 million jobs. And this is not me saying this. The Wall Street Journal says that if Obama had added what most presidents add during recessions, had added 2 million jobs, we'd be under 7% unemployment. Now, your point on private sector is well taken. You're upset that the 130,000 isn't enough per year or per month. The 68 obviously is bad. And Andrew, I'll tell you right now, as a staunch defender of Obama, if we have 68,000 jobs per month for the rest of this year, he'll get out. And I don't know that I'd vote for him. That's not what's going to happen. You and I both know that there's been a dip the last 3 years on that exact month. You know that 130,000 jobs per month is exactly what Bush averaged for his 8 years. So,
well, I'm going to jump in here with this. Sure. First of all, calling up and saying Reagan does not mean I'm going to go like one of Pavlov's dogs. Okay, I'm not gonna start salivating because you said Reagan. All right, the idea that the federal government is supposed to just explode the debt and the deficit to create jobs is nonsense. Nowhere is it found in the United States Constitution that the president of any party is supposed to be hiring cops and firefighters and teachers and municipal workers. That's why we pay taxes to have mayors, county executives, and governors.
I agree with that, actually. The Constitution does not say anywhere that you're supposed to shore up state budgets. But can you name me a single president in the history of this country during a recession that has not shored up state budgets, that has not added government jobs? Because everyone has done it until Obama.
And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If the federal government is doing something it's not supposed to be doing, then the federal government is part of the problem.
Well, if that is the issue and you feel like the best stance forward is to not shore up state budgets, you made a point in an earlier segment that...
Do you want to know why? Here's the problem, Scott. The federal tax rates are so high that the states have become clients of the federal government. So when state budgets experience shortfalls, they experience shortfalls because their residents and citizens are paying an inflated tax to the federal government, so the federal government can do things the federal government was never designed and is not supposed to do, and the states now have to go beg to have their budgets shored up by the federal government, which wouldn't be the problem in the first place if the federal tax rate was lowered and the responsibilities that used to be the states were returned to the states and no longer engaged upon by the federal government.
Andrew, the tax rate has...
Tell me where I'm wrong on that. Tell me where I'm wrong on that, sir.
I'll be happy.
Tell me where... hold on. I want you to tell me where in the federal Constitution it says the federal government is supposed to be involved in... Where do you live? What town in Florida?
Fort Walton Beach.
Okay, I used to live in Fort Walton Beach. Where is it in the federal Constitution that the federal government is supposed to be bypassing Rick Scott to fund the Okaloosa Walton County Sheriff's Department or the Municipal Fort Walton Police Department or the Okaloosa Walton County School System? Where?
I've already agreed with you that it is not in the Constitution, yet every president in our history has done that. And again,
I don't care. It's still, this is the problem. Not everything is some right-left paradigm. Not everything can be overturned by going, well, Reagan did it. Okay, Reagan wasn't a monarch. There was still Tip O'Neill. There was still a Democrat House and Senate. Reagan had to work with the Democrats. Whether or not he was a compromiser by his nature is irrelevant. He was forced into compromise by the Democrats. If he didn't give them some of the things that they wanted, like government jobs, he wouldn't have gotten other things that he wanted. So that was a give and take under Ronald Reagan. But just because Ronald Reagan had amnesty in 1986, that doesn't mean I'm pro-amnesty. And someone says, well, Reagan did it. Okay, Reagan did lots of things. If Reagan ate a ham sandwich, I wouldn't eat a ham sandwich. If Ronald Reagan jumped off the bridge, I'm not going to jump off the bridge.
I don't think I jump off the bridge after the Gipper either. I wasn't trying to use...
It's not the point. The point, you're trying to use anecdotal information from other administrations to justify what fails. No matter who drives the big machine, the concept of the big machine is the problem that we're dealing with.
Okay, let's forget the anecdotal. Let's stick with the fact that you asked me to address. The tax code today is lower than it's ever been. The reason states' budgets were not shored up, Andrew, is because we were in a recession and tax revenues were low. Had nothing to do with the tax rate. Can you name me a tax rate in the past 50 years that's been lower than it is today?
These aren't Obama's desired tax rates. These are the Bush tax rates. I don't call them the Bush tax cuts. They're the Bush tax rates. The idea that there's some watermark of proper taxation that this is what Bill Clinton did. Well, whoop-de-doo. The idea that there's some watermark of perfect taxation that was set once by some Democrat president and to go up or down is always to be compared to that is nonsense.
No, you and I both agree on the Laffer curve, and I have no doubt that if Art Laffer took a look at the jobs data under Reagan and under Clinton, that it's got to be somewhere between 35 and 39. There's no doubt it should be lower. If you lower the taxes, we're going to have less revenue. And the idea...
But you're missing the point again. If you lower the federal tax rate, if you could lower the federal tax rate for, let's just arbitrarily say 20%. The states would pick up the taxation, and the states would run the services that the federal government's not supposed to be running. I thank you very much for the call. Scott from Florida said that Reagan increased jobs, and that didn't quite jive with my BS sensor here. I have a New York Times article right in front of me that says, let's see, let me get the headline here. Under Obama, a record decline in government jobs, January 6, 2012. Local governments used to be deemed super safe since federal government started tracking the statistics in 1955. There have only been 6 years when local government employment declined. They have come in threes, 81, 82, and 83, the first 3 years of the Reagan administration. What a shock. So Reagan didn't increase public employment. He decreased saw a decrease in public employment. Whether or not public employment is decreasing under Obama is not for any reason that these local governments just don't have the money anymore. When the federal government forces local governments into unfunded mandates, it's no wonder why they can't afford to maintain certain levels of employment like cops, teachers, and firefighters. Anyway, go ahead with your point. I'm sorry, I didn't want to take up your time.